And Lady C, well, have had so many brilliant questions coming in from our outspoken members. So I want to get straight to them. Moudet says, Lady C, Archewell was found to be delinquent earlier in the year. Is it close to Archewell filing its second lot of accounts? I noticed on Charity Watch that it was noted they have not been filed. And where are the Sussex pair getting their money from to sustain their lifestyle? Is it from donations?
Well, Harry and Meghan's Archewell cannot take donations from the public. It's one of the conditions of their category of mix and match, because they're part corporation, part charity, but they are bound by certain rules and regulations and laws, which they have been, skirting around, because in their last accounts, I have a financial genius, he's an accounting genius, who keeps me up to date on the reality of Harry and Meghan and their financial activities. And in their last accounts, the interest that they earned for the year was on $222,000. So that means that that's the entire amount that they had permanently for the year in their investment account. Notwithstanding that fact, I don't remember. I think in the first accounts it was 11 million, and in the second lot it was 9 million. So my accounting genius said that it's fairly standard that people, when they're moving money around, they're smoke and mirrors, that they move the money around, but they're not. Archewell does not have the millions available to it on a daily basis. On a daily basis, it had $222,000, but they spent more money, or an approximate amount of money, on expenses that they did. I'm not very arithmetical, so I don't have my notes in front of me. I actually did a show on this, or a part of a show on this,
which you can watch on your brilliant YouTube channel, which if you haven't subscribed to, I recommend everyone does, because it's must watch.
But so, it seems that they really, my reading of the situation is they had a maximum of $11 million, which they have been playing around with and moving around. And it went from 11 million to 9 million. Doubtless this year it will go down even more. They earned pretty well for the first year that they were in the United States, before they became so unpopular. And so with each year, it's going to be diminishing returns. But they don't have a great deal of money. They have a massive mortgage on their house. They have massive expenses. And where did the money come from? I suspect some of it would have been inherited, and some of it came from their dealings. And of course, if you put things through corporations and charities, you save on tax. So, and Meghan's very sophisticated she's, if ever she decided that she wanted to cease being a scrubber, she could become a laundress.
Oh, I bow down to you, Lady C. My goodness, that's hilarious. Okay, Dave Murphy from Australia, and he's a big fan of yours, Lady C. He asks, Harry looks miserable to me. I think he is stuck between a rock and a hard place, but can Lady C see a scenario where Harry could return to the UK, and how would joint custody work in the event he chose to leave Meghan so he could still see the kids?
I'm not sure that's a valuable question to answer because it's too complex. But in a best case scenario, if they separated and if they were divorced, let's put it that way, if they were actually divorced and he moved back to England, he would see the children, presumably some of the time they'd be allowed to come to England, and the rest of the time he'd have to see them in California, unless, of course, she should marry some billionaire and waft off with him. But I think Meghan is going to prove to be like Angelina Jolie. There are some women who will do anything to work over a man, and children are fair game, and they will use the children. And I have little doubt that if there was a divorce, unless it was in Meghan's worldly interest, she would bend over backwards to be as nasty as possible. That's just her personality.
Yeah, and it's why Harry was so stupid to move away, because obviously it means the jurisdiction is in California, which is bad for him. So it's virtually impossible for him to come back. He's trapped. Although Elizabeth Bird asks, why on earth is Harry trying to get back to London? This rumour, Lady C, that he wants to find a way back. Also, does Lady C believe that Harry and Meghan are in fact separated?
I don't believe a thing that comes out of Harry and Meghan's mouth. I know that they were trying to say last year, not now, last year, that they were separating. And I said at the time, I'd heard it from two very reliable sources, but I was not prepared to believe it until I actually saw it happen. And I know the marriage is very volatile and very up and down, which it would be, because they're both pretty unstable and volatile individuals. But I don't think it's positively volatile. Say, it's not an Italian marriage with, and then you hug and make up and it's all blood and it's not blood, it's all thunder, but no lightning to strike anybody. I think their marriage I think they're both very toxic personalities, and two toxic personalities, when they're not fighting everybody else, will be fighting each other. And I mean, I don't really want to answer the question too particularly, because I don't believe in speculating.
No, indeed. Kathleen O'Mahony asks, I would like to know, were Meghan's children born of her body or via surrogate? Which is obviously something that you cover in the updated edition of your brilliant book. And I'll put a link for the book in the description.
Well, of course, Dan, you will know we both have to be very careful how I would answer that, because otherwise it could cause massive problems for us legally and financially. Let me put it this way. Meghan's performance throughout her pregnancy was very bizarre. And whatever went on was definitely not what normally goes on, whether it was Meghan padding and Meghan playing with the size of her bum or something else. It's there is a story there to come out, and I feel sorry for the royal family because they have been and of course this Meghan knows would be injurious to the royal family. So, and this is also possibly why she has played things the way she's played them. It's a malicious and destructive mode of behavior that she has thought would put the royal family in a no-win situation. But in fact, if the royal family would simply have a bit of gumption, they would find that they could use all of this to put her in her place and in a no-win situation. But they're obviously either not resourceful enough, not imaginative enough, not experienced enough, and not brave enough. But it would take great courage, because unless it were properly handled, it could very adversely rebound upon them. And they are very mindful of the fact that Meghan has played the colour card from the word go, and that anything to do with those children and how they came into existence, or the doubts as to how they came into existence, to cover the whole of the possibilities, would have possibly racial implications, because there will always be the Dr. Schollers it's because she's a woman of colour, when of course it's nothing to do with that at all.
No.
I mean, women of colour give birth every single day of the week without any irregularities and any speculation. And I've never known another woman of colour or another woman without colour to have performed in a pregnancy the way Meghan did. I mean, that bump had more ups and downs than Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton's marriage.
You're coming up with them today. Lady C is on fire. What I just want to say about this Lady C is that I'm not very across the birth of Lilibet, because obviously that took place in California, but I was very, very closely covering the birth of Archie. And I think a lot of people forget that I was asking serious questions about this right back in May 2019. I published a column in The Sun with a whole load of questions for Buckingham Palace. Why did Harry and Meghan's American PR, Sarah Latham, promise to alert the media the moment Meghan went into labour, only to wait 12 hours to do so? Why did she then seem to lie about it by eventually announcing Meghan was in labour 9 hours after she had apparently given birth? Why was the announcement delayed until 1 p.m? There are so many questions around Archie's birth. I was asking the questions at the time, but I guess I had more trust in what Buckingham Palace was saying at that point. But I was always asking the questions. I literally write in this column, Lady C, it's almost too ludicrous to believe. But we still don't have the answers. We still don't have the answers.
I didn't know that you'd done all of that, Dan, and good for you. But the fact of the matter is, asking Buckingham Palace when Buckingham Palace was being misled by Harry and Meghan, Buckingham Palace was relying on them for information, and they, if they chose to not provide the information to Buckingham Palace, which again shows a degree of irresponsibility and malignancy, because then the average, ordinary, expected response would be Buckingham Palace is lying to me. But Buckingham Palace didn't need to be lying to you. Sarah Latham didn't need to be lying to you. Harry and Meghan could have been lying to Sarah Latham.
And I think that is highly possible. because it definitely happened in the past.
Mm.
Barbara Brown, Lady C, asks, do you think Trump threatening Harry's right to stay in the US will undermine the strong alliance the UK and US have enjoyed for 80 years?
Absolutely not a chance. It really makes no difference whatsoever. Uh, I don't think Trump is, if he gets in, is going to kick Harry out. Remember, Harry was let in under Trump's presidency, not under Biden's. Biden has protected him, but Trump is the one who let him. So, which was quite correct of Trump to do, incidentally. But I do not see that anybody of any political persuasion in the United States is not going to find a way of accommodating the prodigal son of one of its main allies. But if he did, I think it would gain a lot of respect from people on both sides of the Atlantic, and I do not think it would undermine the relationship any more than the relationship has already been undermined by various lawsuits. For instance, the NatWest 3, we are always sending people to America that America says committed crimes, that even when the crimes weren't committed in America, they never send anybody to us. So, I mean, we need to grow up and realize that we're the tail and it's the dog, and we should stop allowing it to wag us.
Yes.
I think we need to have some dignity.
Enkiss asks Lady C, does Lady C believe His Royal Highness William the Prince of Wales is acting in the role of Prince Regent, albeit without the title?
No, absolutely not. I think he is not a regent. Charles is very much in command. I think in the last years of the late Queen's reign, Charles was incorporated more and more into the role as almost as a mini monarch without being. It was a soft regency, some people say, but I wouldn't have actually said that's actually accurate. I think it was more Charles was very much the vice president and the Queen was the president, and she was in charge. And that's pretty much what's happening again, but Charles is much more, and Charles has the reins very firmly in his hands, in a way that the Queen had started to let go of some of the reins, not all, but some. But Charles he enjoys being king, and he's not prepared to relegate his role and share his power at this point, because he doesn't need to. What he does do is because he's mindful of the fact that it was in his interest as the successor to the late Queen to be gradually more and more incorporated. And he and William are in tandem together, so to speak. But no, it's not a regency, not even a soft regency. It's a very powerful senior partner, and the successive junior partner has some say, but ultimate authority rests with the senior partner.
And final question, Lady C, comes from Minnie Newman, who asks, can you ask Lady C if she thinks that William, when king, or Charles sooner, might ask Beatrice or Eugenie to work full-time in the royal family? Zara would be popular, but seems that she doesn't want it.
Well, Zara is not a member of the royal family, which people just don't seem to get. Her mother is a member of the royal family. It's a patrilineal system. It's not a matrilineal system. So Zara is not a member of the royal family any more than David Linley is a member of the royal family, as Princess Margaret used to say. Just because my children have a mother who's a princess doesn't make them royal. They're not royal. So Zara is, I mean, I'm not saying that they couldn't change the system for people, members of the family who are not royal, to be a part of it. But I have been saying for years that I think Beatrice and Eugenie should be made. They would be good at it. They want to do it. And I always thought it was an act of folly. And I've been saying now for many years, Princess Anne has started to say it, but I've been saying it long before anybody else, that this whole business of a cut down monarchy was going to prove to be a disaster. It was obvious that it was going to prove to be a disaster. But if you didn't know if you weren't as involved as I used to be with charity work, and you didn't really know the way the establishment worked, the way I do, it was very easy to miss it. And Charles's attitude, which, and I have to say, I think William has some of that as well. They don't get that we are not Denmark. Denmark's full population is half of London's. You know, we're not Sweden. We're not Norway. These are countries, irrespective of their landmass, that have tiny populations relative to ours. You know, there's little for them to do. There's an awful lot for the royals to do in this country. And most of it, 98% of what they do, goes unsung and is not reported in the mainstream media. And both Charles and William seem to have missed the point that being royal isn't only about what appears in the newspapers or on ITV at 10 or whatever time ITV has its news nowadays. I think it's really naive of them. And I hope that Beatrice and Eugenie will end up being, because they should. Beatrice has actually, even while the Queen was alive, she did and substituted for the Queen. For instance, the event that I went to for the Jubilee at Windsor, Beatrice substituted for her grandmother. And they're both very good at what they do. I have friends who are very involved with charities that they're involved with, and they really are good girls. And the fact that their parents might have had rather dodgy pasts shouldn't impact upon them.
Lady Colin Campbell has never been one to mince words. And this time, she's not just raising eyebrows, she's lighting a fuse. Because according to one of the most well-connected voices in royal circles, what we've seen from Harry and Meghan so far, that's just the preview. The real story hasn't even broken yet. Let's be clear about something the mainstream media keeps dancing around. This is not a fairy tale that hit a rough patch. Lady C is using the word volatile, and she doesn't use words carelessly. That's not the language of a marriage going through growing pains. That's the language of a powder keg. Think about what we already know publicly. The contradictions, the shifting narratives, the solo appearances, the body language that no amount of PR spin can paper over. And now someone with real insider knowledge is telling us the temperature inside that Montecito mansion is far higher than anyone's letting on. The question isn't whether there are problems. The question is, how bad does it have to get before it becomes undeniable? Now here's where it gets serious, and I want you to really sit with this. Lady C compared Meghan to Angelina Jolie in the context of a divorce. That is not a compliment. That is a warning. We all watched the Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie situation unfold. What started as a glamorous power couple became one of the most brutal, protracted custody and legal battles Hollywood has ever seen. And the children, those children, were pulled right into the center of it. Lady C is essentially saying, If this marriage ends, Meghan won't go quietly. She won't settle graciously. She will fight, and she will use every weapon available to her, including, allegedly, the children. That's a bombshell statement, because it reframes everything. It means Archie and Lilibet aren't just caught in the crossfire. According to Lady C's read of the situation, they could become leverage. And then there's that phrase that should have everyone paying attention. There's a story to come out. Lady C doesn't elaborate. She doesn't need to. Those 6 words are doing enormous work. She's addressed the pregnancy rumors, and rather than simply dismissing them, she's signaling that the full picture is more complicated than what's currently circulating. This matters because Meghan's pregnancies have always existed in a strange media space, simultaneously over-documented and under-scrutinized. Questions that would be asked of any other public figure have been treated as off-limits. But when someone of Lady C's standing says there's more to this story, you don't brush that aside. What does she know? Who has she spoken to? And why hint at it now? Some will dismiss Lady Colin Campbell as a gossip. That would be a mistake. Her record on this couple is remarkably consistent. She called the trajectory of this relationship years ago when others were still applauding the romance. She warned about character. She warned about the institution's response. She warned about where the money tensions would lead. Was she right about everything? No. But her hit rate on the structural problems in this marriage is hard to argue with. And when she says a divorce will turn nasty, not just difficult, not just sad, but nasty, that's a specific, deliberate word choice from a woman who has lived through the British aristocracy, written about it, and watched it devour people for decades. Here's what keeps me up at night about this. Lady C says there's a story to come out. Not a story that's already out. Not a story being suppressed. A story that is coming, future tense. Inevitable. So ask yourself this. If the public collapse of this marriage is still ahead of us, and someone who knows the inner circles is already bracing for it to turn nasty, what exactly are Harry and Meghan still protecting? What hasn't been said yet? Because Lady Colin Campbell doesn't tease stories she doesn't believe will land. And she believes this one is going to land hard. Drop your predictions in the comments. What do you think the story is? And do you think Harry and Meghan